Hey everyone, Vale here at Mobalytics, and today we're back with another video all about 12 of the new builds and picks that you should be playing in Preseason 22. This period of any season is always mental. New champions are popping off left, right and centre, and here's our quick list of those you should definitely get your hands on. So let's jump straight into it, and first off on this list we've got Viktor. Now this champion has flown under the radar for a little while and hasn't really been the big dog for a little bit of time now, but wow do the pre-season changes suit him. I don't know if it's because of Arcane kicking off or whatever, but this champion has arrived with a bang. Viktor has some crazy build choices depending on any situation. You can genuinely become unkillable with the new defensive item choices for mages. Starting off with the Crown of the Shattered Queen, which gives you the most insane damage reduction passive alongside its really good stat pool. Then you can go for a Banshees or a Zhonya's, and with your Phase Rush 2 you can become a ridiculously strong powerhouse that's nearly impossible to shut down, especially if you don't play solo. If you prefer a more offensive route though, you can go for a Luden's Tempest Rush into the new Shadow Flame, which gives you an unbelievable amount of burst and damage, and even allows you to benefit against champions with inbuilt shields with its magic penetration hit. Due to the flexibility of Viktor's build options and his already powerful kit, this champion will run riot in this patch. Now obviously there are a few other mages that are seeing some similar effect like Orianna, Cassiopeia, but Viktor really seems to be able to utilise the versatility of this meta shift the best of the lot so far. The next build we're going to talk about is actually depending on a rune, Lethal Tempo, and this is absolutely nuts on melee champions like Tryndamere and Jax. Basically, it's been changed so it now builds up stacks with auto attacks, and at 6 stacks you get bonus attack range plus you're able to exceed the attack speed limit. This is absolutely absurd on those aggressive auto attack based top laners and completely changes the way this rune works and in a very oppressive manner. Melee champions gain a whopping 15% attack speed per stack, while ranged champions only get 5%, hence why it's been a much bigger issue in the top lane. Not only that, but it also gives extra attack range at max stacks. Let's be honest, it's probably going to get nerfed or changed slightly soon, as most runes scale throughout the game unlike this one. Now we've also seen Lethal Tempo get a lot of action on certain bot lane champions like Jinx, but really it's on those melee champions like Tryndamere and Jax, which is just unbelievably strong. This rune is absolutely busted, so if you do main one of these champions, make sure you're abusing it. The next build we've got is all dependent on the new mana scaling tank item built from Tear of the Goddess, Winter's Approach, which at max stacks turns into Thimble Winter. Try and say that 3 times once you've had a few pints. So this item gives bonus health equivalent to a percentage of a maximum mana, which is going to be amazing on champions like Nasus and Maokai. The thing is though, if that wasn't already strong enough, it gives a shield every 8 seconds when you slow or immobilize someone, which works exceptionally well with Nasus's Wither cooldown. Imagine a full tank running at you with an endless mana pool, constant shield, and if it's Nasus, the ability to one-slap you off the rift with his Q. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts, especially when you pair it with a few already strong items like Divine Sunder for example, and even Frozen Heart for even more tankiness. So now you're telling me not only do I have to build penetration and anti-heal against this champion, now I have to buy Serpent's Fang or Shadow Flame against him too? Nasus is definitely going to be lapping it up with this item, but there are a few others like Maokai that we mentioned earlier, and maybe even other champions like Sion, Singed, Rise, and even Kassadin can consider it too. The next strong change and build to go over is actually the new Turbo Chem tank on champions like Skarner and Udyr. It's been changed now to include a unique passive somewhat similar to Dead Man's Plate, adding more overall damage instead of just running it down towards your enemies. Thankfully, it still does this though. The ghosting effect is insane on these champions when they want to stick and chase their targets, and you can even grab yourself Ingenious Hunter to make this item usable more often. Another thing you can add to this build to make it even more nuts is the new Force of Nature. This item has been changed now and it gives you stacks upon magic damage taken or upon immobilizing an enemy champion, and at max stacks you get tons of movement speed and magic resist. You're going to be absolutely unstoppable and unkillable, and to be honest, in this mage heavy change meta we may see these tankier champions excel against all the mage abusers, especially with this new Force of Nature. The next one to talk about is Lethality assassins that can really make use of the new Axiom arc. This item is just absolutely awesome. The first champions obviously that come to mind are Zed, Qiyana, Nocturne, Rek'Sai and Talon. Lethality mids or junglers who can really rely on their ultimate to do their job more effectively will thrive off this item, and you don't even need to land the killing blow, just damage the champion, and if they die in the next 3 seconds you get 25% of your ult's cooldown lowered. 25! So if you damage 3 or 4 champions in a fight, you could actually use your ultimate on repeat, especially in extended scenarios. This will be absolutely crazy when it comes to overcoming the odds in scenarios where you may be a little bit outnumbered, giving you a chance to outplay even on a 1v5. A few of those champions we mentioned earlier will also benefit heavily from the Prowler's Claw buff too. Rek'Sai and Qiyana especially, as the new buff does more overall damage with the item active. Prowler's Claws burst and a lower cooldown on your ultimate could really make the difference for these champions, and as long as the game's draft allows it, this could be a pretty easy 1v9 for these champions. Next up is going to be Jace. Now Jace has been pretty strong for the last few months and is performing really well, especially in higher elos, even making a strong contribution in the World Championships. Well, if Jace wasn't already in a good spot, Eclipse just got a really tasty buff, making the shield and damage very strong on ranged champions, as we've already seen a good amount of Xayah with it recently too. You want to pair this with a Muramana and a Sorelda's Grudge, which are both performing exceptionally well at the moment too, and you've got an incredibly strong contender in the solo lanes. Jace is also a champion that maybe will get some use out of the new First Strike rune. Now we aren't too sure just how strong this rune is going to perform at the moment, but if you can abuse it often enough by being a ranged top laner for example, this will just make him even stronger, but time will tell for that one. The next change we're going to talk about, and something you should definitely be playing, is engaging supports. They finally got a new mythic option and wow does it feel incredibly strong. It's basically the old Abyssal Mask. It makes your enemies take increased damage after you immobilize them, which is going to be crazy on champions with consistent AoE CC like Leona, Nautilus, Rel and Alistair, and plenty more support champions. We will definitely see a huge return of these picks, especially when paired with champions with AoE damage and follow-up who can really utilize this and make it worthwhile. Teamfight compositions will definitely be back with a bang this preseason, and we are definitely looking forward to it. So we've already spoken about champions like Skarner and Udyr and engaging supports, but tanks are really going to come back this preseason. Frostfire Gauntlet, Sunfire Aegis and other items like Abyssal Mask and Demonic Embrace have all been buffed or changed and are now going to be so much stronger. Malphite is definitely going to be someone who can abuse this fully. He has so many different viable build options and he can change it all up depending on his matchups and the draft. You want to play aggressive? You can even go for an Everfrost, which is now cheaper, and then get some other tanky damage items like Demonic Embrace or Abyssal Mask to surprise your enemies with your oppressive damage and poke. If you want to embrace the rock solid, build a Sunfire Aegis and go full tank and genuinely become impossible to take down, especially against the right team comp. This champion is 100% going to be a serious problem to play against this preseason, and to be honest, will probably draw some bans. Talking of champions to ban, next up we're talking about potentially one of the most oppressive and overpowered picks that will be around this preseason, Tahm Kench. He was already strong for a decent amount of time since his mini rework, and now his new item setup is going to be absolutely devastating. The new items have definitely benefited this champion the most out of any champion in the game. Frostfire Gauntlet now gives AoE magic damage, the new Demonic Embrace is absurd and actually synergizes insanely well with Frostfire Gauntlet. The more HP you have, the more AP you have, and due to Tahm's ratios it works incredibly well. Abyssal Mask also reduces everyone's magic resist and it gives you more HP, which is more AP, and so on and so forth. And if all of this wasn't enough, Titanic Hydra also synergizes exceptionally well with this build and works hand in hand with Demonic Embrace to simultaneously proc each other's passives relentlessly. All of that may seem a little bit complicated and a tad overwhelming, but just try it and have fun becoming absolutely unkillable whilst dealing more damage than the whole enemy team combined. Another champion who has been around for a while and for good reason is Sylas. Sylas' self-healing, skirmishing power and versatility have made him a real threat, and he's been very difficult to deal with for a decent amount of time now. Well, due to a few changes to his existing build path, I'm afraid he's going to be even stronger. Everfrost is now 400 gold cheaper, meaning he doesn't have to suffer as much in the early stages and he can now lock you down easier. Cosmic Drive got a few changes, making it absolutely crazy on this champion. I mean, it was already strong due to the sheer amount of ability haste it granted him, but now it works well in a slightly different approach. Dealing damage to an enemy with 3 separate attacks or abilities procs its passive, which by the way is very easy to do on Sylas. This passive now gives you 40 AP and bonus movement speed until combat ends. Sylas is already a monster when it comes to prolonged fights where he can continuously abuse his short cooldowns and self-healing, and this is only going to make him even stronger. Pair this with some of the new AP options or defensive choices and you will be incredibly hard to deal with. Glacial Augment is finally back in action, and this time it's a bit different. It used to only really be relevant on Senna last season, but now it's been changed so that it procs when you CC someone. Champions with low cooldown consistent crowd control abilities can absolutely love this item. Braum, Morgana and Nautilus are the obvious choices as it can proc it pretty easily, and honestly it's a lot scarier than it sounds. Not only does it slow enemies around the target and deal damage, but it also reduces their damage by 15% to your allies, which is incredible in those early fights and skirmishes, especially in the bot lane. We can definitely see this being a solid option and can even be paired with the new Even Shroud for even more power and impact. The last pick or build or change that we want to talk about with you today is actually about Mordekaiser. He's found a really powerful new build with Demonic Embrace second after Frostfire Gauntlet. Now, Frostfire Gauntlet is something we've seen built on him before in the jungle, but the big strength now is the addition of AoE damage on his autos. You have pretty good constant damage due to it, you're tanky, and the slow helps you stay in range of opponents and stop them from kiting you in your ultimate. Demonic Embrace is an amazing follow-up because of the dot effect that was buffed to 8% over 4 seconds for melee champions. And on top of that, you now convert a percentage of your bonus HP into AP. With Frostfire offering its own HP, HP from the Mythic passive, and the HP from Demonic, you'll be extremely bulky but still putting out ridiculous damage and winning duels with ease. Mordekaiser is definitely going to be a really solid option to allow you to deal with powerful duelists in the top lane. So that brings us to the end of this video. These have been our top 12 builds and picks that you should be playing in preseason, but remember, there are still plenty of very strong champions and items already that didn't see too much change. Riftmaker and Nashor's Tooth, Immortal Shieldbow, Divine Sunderer and plenty more. Let us know in the comments who you're having fun with in this preseason, and we hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. And remember, in the words of Kha'Zix,
change is good.
Thanks for watching, I've been your host Vale, and as always, take care.